cherry, some people like lime.
Do we want to open with that maybe? I'm Ken, and
I'm Nicole.
And we're back to Access. We're doing Deuteronomy at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're having a discussion about theology being like Jell-O, which maybe we'll save for another day.
Okay. There's always room for Jell-O.
There's always room. That's right.
We'll save it for another day.
Okay.
It'll be the dessert.
Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is the 5th book in the Pentateuch, the Torah, so it's the last of the 5.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of you know it from Cats, the great musical Cats, where it's this old cat, and whenever he shows up, they sing, "Oh, Deuteronomy." Nicole's tired of me singing.
Well, can I just say this is like your second Andrew Lloyd Webber reference?
And I'm not a musical guy.
Like, when are we going to bring in the Phantom of the Opera? Work on that.
I'm thinking about it.
I know.
And often Deuteronomy in Greek means the seconding of the law, or
mm-hmm.
the second law. And in the past, Deuteronomy has not been prized as highly as Exodus, because it has this sense of, well, it has a lot of the same stories. It's basically just Exodus part 2.
Mm-hmm.
We don't believe that anymore. In fact,
mm-hmm.
I would say Deuteronomy has come back to its status as probably the most prized book of the Torah.
Yeah.
In that, for the Jews, it is the book most important to their daily practice and faith. The Shema prayer is in this text. And for Jesus, this is the book that he quoted more than any other book in the Bible, is Deuteronomy. So it's a book that merits, at least for us, careful attention and consideration. It is a very different kind of book than the others that we had. Most of the stories, as Nicole was wisely bringing up, with all the different genres in Numbers, a lot of the feel of the first 4 books is narrative and this epic story told from kind of a third-person perspective. That is not how Deuteronomy tells the story.
Not at all.
Deuteronomy is set up at the very end of the journey. They've escaped from Egypt. They've been through the wilderness, and now they are standing on the edge of the promised land, and they're looking into it, and there are 5 sermons that Moses is going to give, 5 long sermons before they can go in. I'm sure that people were like, couldn't we have a hymn Sunday? Or
I know. A hymn sing.
And just go in, right? So structurally, it's entirely different. The language is different. It's elegant and artistic in a way that the other books are not. And historically, this book is written at a different time. So I'll sort of go through an easy timeline for when these books are written. This is all kind of what we think. Best guesses. Scholars put Abraham around the year 1800, so somewhere in that time period. And the family moves into Egypt around 17. My hand lowers. And then they're in Egypt.
This is all before the Common Era.
All before, yes, sorry.
So it's
1700 years before
BC.
Christ. Exactly. And then we get down to about 1280. It's around then when scholars believe the Exodus occurred. And then from about 1280 down to 1000, when David assumes the throne around 1000, this is all called the period of oral history. So the Habiru, my favorite name, the Jews have kind of become a people in the Exodus, and they've started this tradition of stories, and they tell it. They use word of mouth up until about the year 1000, and that's when we begin to write down these epics, and where the J school that Nicole talked about, which mainly supports the Davidic, God working through the Davidic monarchy, and the E school, which talks much more about the northern kingdom, has emphases there. Now we have a D school, which we haven't talked about. We talked about P, the priestly school. But the D school is the Deuteronomy school. And this book is probably written in the 7th century, which is the most closer to time to us than all the other epics were written, during the time of the King Josiah. And Josiah is what's considered a good king, and he ushers in this massive reformation. The religious faith was getting kind of cattywampus, and all sorts of different influences were coming in. What cattywampus? I noticed you had sort of a funny one. Anyway, it was getting a little crazy, a little kludgy. How about that?
Okay.
And Josiah says we're going to do several things. We are going to reform the religious structure that we have. So we're going to centralize. The temple is going to be the place where we have worship. We're going to get rid of the high places, meaning we're going to get rid of the influence of other traditions. And basically, we're going to get back to the covenant. God established with Moses, "I will be your God, and you will be my people." And Josiah and that whole people had felt like we've really gotten away from our straight path. And so it's at that time that they reform, and one of the ways that they do that is they tell the Moses story again in the book of Deuteronomy, and actually further, because we have what's called the Deuteronomistic history, say that fast, it goes Deuteronomy all the way to 2 Kings, and it's almost like a book within a book. It's like a book within the Bible that tells history in a very particular way that almost has more to do with Josiah's day than perhaps Moses's. They both are influential.
Yeah, you can tell a lot about what's going on in the 7th century by what they're saying is going on in what would it be, like the 12th century BC?
Exactly. Like the way that I think about it, this is a little nerdy. This is like nerd. I don't know, nerd sign. I've been going through Shakespeare's histories at the moment, and I've watched.
I love those.
I watched 2 movies of Henry V.
That's my favorite movie.
Awesome.
It's
so you've seen the Olivier.
Yes.
Like, and it's like war. The Britons are kicking tail, and that was done right after World War II.
Right.
In the sense of Britain triumphing over Hitler.
Right.
And war is good. And then the Kenneth Branagh version,
which is my preferred.
Yeah, is a much more realistic portrayal of war and almost an anti-war.
Very much so. And I think it's also kind of like how in American politics we appeal back to the founding fathers to describe certain values that we have today.
Yes, and we pick.
And we pick. And we craft those, and we kind of have a parallel narrative history about the foundation of America that's actually nothing like the actual foundation of America in history. But that popular story is the one that the current generations kind of appeal to. Yeah.
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 Great. Well, I'm kind of good with who and when. So themes, Nicole. What are the themes in Deuteronomy? Old Deuteronomy.
We gotta get through this quick so this can stop.
We can edit this out.
The themes in Deuteronomy are covenant renewal and reaffirmation. They've gone through this whole desert experience. It's everyone who was once slaves have now died, and it's their children. So it's that second generation of. So it's them.
Passing it on.
Yeah, and them coming into their own understanding of what's going on. There's patterns of conduct that confirm the covenant, and there's this idea of generational remembrance, where it's not just the faith of our immediate fathers and mothers, but going all the way back to Abraham, being like, this is a long story that's been going on, and that God has been working through multiple generations, including you, and they will include all of your children and their children, that you are one generation in a long story.
Just beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, like, family language is such a part of the Old Testament. It's something